StrsHollow in Animal Crossing. I tried to make it as show accurate as possible. So let's go take a look. Starting at the airport. Here we have the music store. This is where Marshall is. Marshall I have as my Logan stand-in. Let me know if you can guess every villager and the character they correspond to by the end of the video. I'm very curious if you can get them all. Here's the map of StrsHollow, and you can see all the villagers I have. I have Annabelle, Meringue, Lionel, Bob, Twiggy, Marshall, Shep, Raymond, Barbara, and Beardo. So I will reveal which villager goes to which character if you make it all the way to the end of the video. I'd love to hear your guesses before that. And this is the layout of the town. So this is the music store. This is where Lane gets her first drum set. There's a little bulletin board. Definitely one of my favorite builds. I did decorate every house. I also, of course, did most of the town of StrsHollow. Bob is my Kirk. Oh my gosh, I'm giving you guys so many hints. This is Miss Patty's. Let's take a look inside. This is Miss Patty's during a town meeting. I have a little popcorn bucket for the time that Lorelei came in with snacks. I think that's an ongoing thing with her. She has like snacks. I put an iced coffee up here where Taylor usually speaks. Obviously a chair for Miss Patty, who's always right here. And then some, I think they're called plie bars, you know, off to the side, because this is of course a dance studio and also their town hall. It definitely feels like a more nighttime vibe. Yeah. Leaving Miss Patty's, I have lots of TV cameras around to make it seem like the show is being shot currently. Over here, we have Luke's diner. 4 of the major characters I have as actual like residents, villagers, so I could have the full house. So if you were to visit the Dream of Jess, which I will link below, you can always visit Luke's diner, the Dragonfly Inn, Lorelei and Rory's house, and Emily's house. So this is Luke's. We have our no cell phone sign. Some of the various just like diner things that existed. We have Berliner's, his donuts, his old-timey cash register. I tried to make it very bright, but also somewhat eclectic looking. The phone that he had on the wall, obviously we need to have a coffee maker. In the back here, while you never actually see the kitchen in the show, I wanted to put something in to fill out the house. So I have his restaurant kitchen. It's pretty simple, but I like what I came up with. And then the other room we have over here, you do actually see the storeroom in the show a little bit, like I think like once or twice you see the showroom or his storeroom. But I, have the fire extinguisher, some extra chairs, maybe some bookkeeping things, some tools. I have a fax machine on the floor because for whatever reason that feels very Luke to me. And then, some food, a baseball glove because he was on the softball team. And then upstairs, we have Luke's apartment. I have a little cot here for when Jess was staying over. A little old-timey TV. One of the things that's like a little interesting in Animal Crossing, and you just have to work with it, is all the spaces are square, and Luke's apartment in the show actually kind of curves like along the building. So I tried my best to try to create that same feeling, but in the rectangular space that they provide. So we have his kitchen. And then we have like his living area / bedroom. Let's go check out the rest of the town. I spent a few months on this island, which is one of my longest builds ever, actually. I don't often spend this long on an island, but I'm super satisfied with how everything came out. Here we have the soda shop. Let's take a little look. This is the soda shop. This is actually where I envisioned the door being, because here's the window that looks like directly into Luke's diner. The soda shop was a little simple for a build, but I definitely like how it came out. I do wish there was a few other items that kind of conveyed the feeling I wanted a bit more, but overall, I definitely like how it came out. We have a little milkshake on the counter. Again, one of the antique cash registers. It's very colorful and bright. Someone's having a little float of some sort. This is Taylor's old-time soda shop. And if we keep heading north, this is the bus stop Rory would use when she would go to and come from Chilton. So I use resident services as the high school. The flag for the town is actually just the Connecticut flag. And then one of my favorite parts of the build, hello Shep, is actually my town square. Tell me how many Easter eggs you can see just along the square here. This is what I did as the gazebo. I'm really pleased with how this came out. I definitely feel like it's one of the most creative things that I did. And then moving along, this is just a construction site, but I made it to make like a visual break for the town. Moving along here, we get to the lake. This is the bridge that Jess and Rory share the picnic basket and where Luke pushes Jess into the water. And this is where I decided to put my campsite. And if we sneak along here, we get to Babette's house, which I'll show you. Here is Babette's home. This is definitely one of the favorite builds of mine as well. Of course, I keep saying that. I think this whole island is fantastic. I think it's one of my best yet. You only see Babette's house, as far as I'm aware, once in the show when Rory is cat sitting and she has Dean over for dinner after they've had a small fight. And it's like a kind of farmhouse looking space. And this is what I came up with for that. It's definitely one of my favorite spaces in the show. And I was super excited to do it in the game. Let me know what you think of this one. And then this is Lorelei's house. You enter in the kitchen because it made the most sense in terms of how the house is set up. So to the left, if you're thinking of the house in your mind right now, you can imagine what I put here. This is their living room. Normally, this is where their stairs to go upstairs are, but because obviously there isn't a stair item, I just kind of created another little corner. Here is Lorelei's dollhouse. I tried to make this like as cozy as possible. There's lots of little items. Of course, we have to have coffee. I have coffee all throughout the island. It is everywhere. You can find it in almost every room and almost every space on the island. To the north through here, just like the back door of the house, I decided to make the garage space when Lane's band used it for practice. But to make it feel more like a garage as well, I just also kind of put in some extra items. So it didn't feel like just a band practice space, but a place that like Lorelei stored items. So I took some creative liberties. And then, of course, to the right here, my favorite in this entire house, Rory's room. This, I think, is the most show-accurate room that I made in Lorelei's house. Obviously, I have another TV camera hidden in there, but we have her desk, her bookshelves. We have, like, her placards up on the walls. If we can get a good view of that. A lot of her, like, posters and just, like, various things that Rory had in her room. Educational posters, so on. Definitely one of my favorite rooms in the build. And if that's Rory's room, upstairs obviously needs to be Lorelei's. So this is what I did for Lorelei's room. I put a bunch of alarm clocks because there's one episode, one of the like intro gags of the show was Lorelei needing to wake up. So Rory put in like 100 alarm clocks to go off at like 7 a.m. or something. And I thought that was a really funny joke. So I had to put a bunch in her room. And then here is the bathroom after the remodel, after she had a giant hole in her wall. I had the double sinks because they mention it near the end of the show. There it is, Lorelei's room. Outside, I have Luke's boat. I have the chuppah that Luke made for Lorelei and Max's wedding that never happened. I have the kiddie pool where Luke taught her how to fish. Should probably grab these. And then here's her car. And of course, another TV camera. And coming along down this way, we go over here. Here is the town's sign. This is Doose's Market. And here is Doose's Market. Again, one of the best spaces I created, especially using such a small space. I feel like, well, the market is already very small. It only is like, I think 3 rows of food and then like a little freezer section in the back. And here it is. We have their little checkout, little rows of food. We have specials on the wall. It's very bright, lots of windows. The freezer section. I absolutely adored this space. But this section is the other part of Doose's Market. I thought I'd use Nook's Cranny and of course the interior of the market here to kind of make the whole block be Doose's. I have the Hughes Brothers gas station, auto repair shop, and some various little outdoor things. Down on the beach, I reference Rory's spring break with Paris. And then this section I have as Sookie's. This is Weston's bakery. So let's take a look inside. Here is Weston's bakery. It's definitely like a really warm space. I actually cannot walk around. Thank you, Tom. It's definitely a really warm space. I have obviously a bunch of the dessert displays, some cakes on display. You have to have a picture of Brewster, a cafe connoisseur and owner himself. Various desserts on the table. I tried to make it feel very inviting, very warm, very orange. This is not as show accurate, but I do really like how this came out as well. It feels like a super warm and inviting space. A place where Michelle would love to hang out. And then, of course, this is Sookie's. This is Sookie and Jackson's actual home. It definitely is a very cluttered space. I tried to make it feel like, you know, they have kids, there's things around. It's not like the most quiet space. It's not the neatest. There's, of course, a huge spread of food, though, because Sookie is a professional chef. I used the... I thought of Lorelei and Luke over for dinner at their house as like as the inspiration for this home. It's just a loud space, very warm, very inviting, but definitely not the neatest. And then moving along, this is the beauty supply store. And this is the beauty store. Definitely another space that I really enjoyed making. Despite not seeing it too often in the show, I actually really enjoyed this. Something that stuck out to me is how when Kirk worked here, how he looked and how funny I thought that image was, and like the wigs on the wall behind him. I had to include it onto my island. I thought it was one of the funniest images in the show. And then I, of course, filled out the rest of the space with just like various items, and I think it conveys the theme very well. And over here is the bookstore. Now, not every villager lives in the business that I have their character associated with, but this is where Rory worked in the summer. I have a little reference to when she was talking to Lane, organizing books. There is Twiggy. I think the bookstore was very successful. And if you've noticed, I don't have Mrs. Kim or Lane's house what I did for them was turn the Able sisters into Kim's Antiques. So you can see some of the stuff they have out in the yard. And then I used the 2 Able sisters as Lane and Mrs. Kim. If we come along the highway, this is where Rory did her community service. Moving along, this spot is where the deer hit Rory's car in season 1. There's the deer. And to the north, we have my Yale build. Definitely one of my favorite outdoor builds I've ever done. I think it definitely speaks to what Yale is. We have our little coffee cart. There's just a lost book on the ground. There's lots of places to sit. We have the dog, which always made me feel a little uncomfortable. And then here, we have the Yale Daily News. Definitely one of my best builds outdoors, and this is how you get to the secret beach. And of course, I felt like the museum was the perfect building to kind of make Yale. And as we sneak along, we get to the Gilmore estate. This is Richard and Emily's. Let's go to the backyard first, where the DRA would meet sometimes. We have some tea and some desserts, lots of flowers. Let's look inside the house. This is the pool house. When I asked my community what they wanted to see, Rory when she lived in it or Richard when he lived in it, they all voted for Richard. So it's definitely a more elegant space. It feels a little more old school, boomerish. There's of course some coffee. There's a door that goes to the rest of the pool house, bedroom, presumably a little work desk, some art on the wall, various like fishing trophies, an old-timey music player, and then his little drink cart right here. Another build that I definitely enjoyed doing and I felt was fairly accurate to the show. So once again, the rooms you enter is not the entryway, but makes sense in terms of like the Animal Crossing build. This is their dining room, obviously. I tried to make this as show accurate as possible as well. So I have a really long table. There's tons of, space that this takes up in the show as well. And then if that's the dining room, this must be their sitting room. I have the white elegant furniture. I have a tea tray here, but I also have like the drink cart. I have a big picture on the wall. Some little kitschy things that they had. And of course, all of their rooms kind of looked out into their backyard. If we sneak along this side, we're going to get to Richard's study. This is what I did for his study. I have some golf clubs hidden in the corner, a little fax machine, a typewriter. On the wall, I have a picture of Rory. Kind of. It feels very elegant and regal. Doing the Gilmore house, other than the dining room and sitting room, I actually did feel like I had a lot of difficulty with because I wasn't sure how I wanted to fill all of the rooms. Over here is the kitchen. I have some fish on ice. Here's an intercom that they have occasionally used. I tried to make it look like, elegant and somewhat like upscale, but this definitely did feel like a bit of a struggle to do. Overall, I do like how it came out, though. I'm still not quite sure how I feel about this suit of armor, but it's the Gilmore house. They're a little eccentric. And then finally, upstairs, I did my best to try to create like Lorelei's kind of childhood bedroom, but I felt like it was like somewhat uninteresting as like just how I made it. So I added like a few other things. So like I'd imagine if Richard and Emily started to use it as storage space, they would just kind of keep some things up here, some extra golf clubs. Again, I have the dollhouse. There's like a little makeup table, some stuffed animals. an ironing board, just various little things to kind of fill the space out. Almost done with the tour. I can't believe it. I did save the best for last. We are going to go see the Dragonfly Inn. And one final Easter egg. You let me know if you know what it is. It was definitely one of my favorites, despite being a last-minute addition to the entire build. This is one of my favorite parts of the whole island. Let me know if you know what this is, because some people who claim to be huge fans did not get it right away, so I'm very curious. Over here is where I built the Dragonfly. I have some stables for the horses. I, of course, blocked off all the beaches. I think it looks pretty tasteful. I did create like an outdoor seating area, which you never really see something like this in the show, but it felt natural and I did like it. Let's take a look inside the actual inn. So this is the check-in desk. There's, of course, some coffee. When I was making the Dragonfly Inn, I was trying to figure out what this design philosophy type is, and somebody said it's New England cluttercore, and I absolutely loved that, and I ran with it. So here's the Dragonfly Inn's check-in area. I think it feels so much like the actual show. Despite not being a one-to-one copy, it feels so accurate to me. Then we have the library and like sitting area. This is where Michel flipped a Chinese checkers game after he lost to some children. Once again, like, not all the items match, but it feels so cozy and warm. It just feels so perfect. Back here is Sookie's kitchen. This is definitely one of the more accurate spaces of the show. We have like the pantry, we have the back door. Here are some vegetables that Jackson recently brought. Here is the stove that had a little grease fire. It's a much brighter space than the rest of the inn, but it, of course, is like a workspace. It just feels so good. It feels Sookie. And then, after we slide along the rest of this area, let's just, there we go. Just not a lot of space. It's pretty cramped. We get to the dining room. The dining room is also a much brighter area. And again, like, it's still very mismatched, but I do still feel like this feels like their dining room. They have the big windows along the wall. People are eating at the little kind of cafe-ish tables. It just feels good. And then upstairs, I have one of the Dragonfly Inn's rooms. You only really get, I think, 2 views of the room. And I used this particular section as the reference when Sookie was bedridden and was having her employees run up Luke's cooking to her. So this is as accurate as I could get, but I wanted to fill out the rest of the room, and this is what I came up with. I definitely love this space as well, and I like how I imagined the rest of it coming together. It feels very much like a room in the Dragonfly would feel like. And it's easily one of my favorite spaces. This whole house, easily one of my favorite interior builds I've ever done. I love it so much. Obviously, Lorelei is Lorelei, Emily is Emily, Rory is Rory, and Luke is Luke. Annabelle is Miss Patty. Marshall is Logan. Twiggy is Paris. Bob is Kirk. Lionel is Richard. Meringue is Sookie. Shep is Jess. Raymond is Michelle. Barbara is Babette. And Beardo is the one and only Taylor Doose. That's my Stars Hollow. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Our next island is going to be Pelican Town from Stardew Valley. I hope you tune in for that. See you soon.